Welcome to the Preventive Medicine Podcast. Help us change the paradigm of medicine from keep people alive to help people thrive, one episode at a time. And now, here's the show. Speaking of preventive medicine and maybe more treatment side when it comes to back pain, when you're telling someone to kind of wait it out in a sense of let the natural history take its course, is there something that you're telling these people or that you would want these people to do in terms of like stretching or strengthening? Because you saw a lot of times when people do visit PT for these types of problems, or like say they go the day after, they get referred to PT right away because that's kind of what happens immediately when someone comes in with an MSK problem. Do you think it's appropriate to recommend stretching and like strengthening, and what's the role of that in general?
It's interesting you said that, because I don't know if you actually read the research on the likelihood of someone being referred to physical therapy for back pain, but it's actually not that high.
Really?
There's actually there's a much higher chance that someone would be referred either to a surgeon or to a chiropractor than there is to a physical therapist.
Really? From anecdotal evidence from the clinic, it just seems that PT is like literally always right there.
That I think is from a 2014 study, so it's probably relatively still accurate, but yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. Wow. That actually surprises me quite a bit.
Yeah. Same.
Yeah. So I think that differs if you're in a medical system that has a physical therapist on staff. So like if you're in maybe a hospital-based system that has physical therapy there, but if we're talking about like outpatient physicians, then usually it'll be, that's the unfortunate case. Yeah. And in the case of physical therapists, what the right thing to do is very tricky. In my personal practice, what I do is I have a conversation with people where I first, go through everything, make sure there's no red flags, anything of concern. And then we go through various tests where my goal through the tests is to actually show the person how robust and strong their spine is. I'm not looking to necessarily like find anything crazy that I think I need to address, but along the way, we'll go through spinal flexion, extension, like all these different things that hopefully the person will see, oh, I can still do these things. And then we'll progress into different exercises as part of my assessment process, like deadlifting, squatting, different movements. And I'm not necessarily looking to prescribe anything. I'm just trying to see like where does this person's endpoint go? Okay, no, I don't think that I can handle anything more. And if I get to the point where someone says, no, I don't feel comfortable. Like I can't deadlift and I can't find a strategy to be able to give them the confidence that they can. And I know that in their daily life and in the activities that they do, they need to be able to do that. Then I'm probably going to prescribe something in the form of exercise. I don't really prescribe stretching. It's a pretty rare incident for me, but I'll usually prescribe some form of an activity that is resembling what they need to get back to. And then my goal is just to prescribe it to the point at which they can then return back to doing the activities that they want to, and then when they're done with it. And so, like if I have a person who's just walking in off the street, no high level activities, and we go through and we discuss all these other things that we previously talked about, like psychosocial factors, sleep, daily step count. I regularly have people like pull out their phones and look at their step count, and I have them have a conversation about hydration and nutrition and that. And then once we get through all that, if the person has a almost full return to abilities with that, then I'm not going to prescribe anything. I discharge, and I usually will actually refer them to a gym in the local area with my aspirations that they'll then go and do that. And I fortunately I practice out of 2 gyms, and I also have connections at 2 other ones. So I can give away lots of information, and I do have a pretty good follow-up of people that go and join one of these gyms afterwards. And then in the contrast, I also see a lot of higher level athletes where in those cases, I am prescribing a lot more. And I don't normally see people for multiple bouts personally. And just because I'm very fortunate that I think when I converse with patients, I'm able to give them a lot of confidence. I'm able to sell them really well that they can handle this themselves. And through that conversation, I get the perception from a patient if they are going to be able to then leave the appointment and crush it themselves, or if they're going to need a little bit more guidance along the way. Probably around 80% of my appointments is the initial evaluation, like I just outlined. And at the end, I give them a few things I encourage them to continue to do. And then they get back to their strength and conditioning. because again, most of those people are high level athletes. Like I train with a bunch of basketball players, I train with some baseball players, swimmers, and then also weightlifters. And I'll regularly have a baseball player come and see me for back pain where, onset was like maybe at the start of the season, like just happened last year when I had 3 guys come in and they hadn't done anything all preseason really. And they came and they got into a heavy season to start going and they had back pain come on. And it was like, okay, well, in your case, I think that we do need to do some additional things to get you up to the demands that you're about to go and do. So I just explained to them what I wanted them to do. They sent me an email every now and then just to check in, and that was the end of it. In contrast, I have the occasional appointment where I might see someone for a few sessions because they have no comprehension of how to do the exercises. I don't necessarily have someone that they are connected with that I feel confident to have them do. And in the case there, then I'll see people for a few appointments. And that's what I try to get a lot of other physical therapists and a lot of other rehab professionals to do, because I think like the long-term perspective of our abilities is not to just stand there and to prescribe people with like 1,000 different things to do, or to just watch someone do a stretch or anything like that. Like once someone can have the capabilities to perform it, like one of the best things we can do is develop greater independence and provide someone with a greater self-efficacy, provide someone with a greater internal locus of control. And I think that like those things are really important. And by me staying with the patient for a longer duration of time, it will reduce them being more in control, and will then reduce how much self-efficacy they actually take in their own healthcare. And a big aspect of that, I think, again, comes back to like, how well can you sell that to the patient? And sometimes there are people that just want to be walked through everything, have their hand hold, but I don't think that's the majority of patients. And the majority of people just need a little bit of a confidence boost, and then they can usually handle things themselves.
I agree. I think that one of the things that we kind of overlook is the humanistic side of medicine, where it's like, sets and reps and prescription exercises, not that they don't hold value, because they hold tremendous value in terms of the specific prescription of what we want to accomplish. But at the same time, having that relationship with the patient where you know what they need from a guidance level and a support level, because, if you saw someone, maybe someone with good, already a good, maybe understanding of pain or something like that, and they're like, what, I just need a more stepwise approach to get back to playing or whatever my sport is, versus someone who's like, I've never had back pain before. The only thing I know about back pain is that it's terrible. And then they're worried about their long-term ability to function. That's going to be 2 completely different needs in terms of what you're providing from an emotional and even, from an emotional, or I guess physician-patient level. Right. To kind of sidestep just a little bit, I know we had entered this question talking about stretching, I think stretching has become one of the most controversial things kind of in the world of physical therapy and kind of the physical health realm, because it doesn't seem as if the evidence supports stretching, but it's one of those inherent things that maybe we all learn from a coach playing sports, or you go to your primary care and they mention it, do some stretching. So like, what are your thoughts on how do we, I guess, utilize it without going against what the evidence says, or do we utilize it at all?
Yeah, I think anytime that we prescribe anything, the goal should be to have a very good purpose behind why it's being utilized. And when it comes to stretching, I don't think that it necessarily is going to provide a ton of return for its investment, whereas we have a lot of other things that might provide more return. And that's where I kind of jump to in most cases is, like what is going to provide the best benefit for my patient with the least effort on their part. And, let's say that I think that stretching is going to be beneficial for someone's back pain. It's possible, I guess. If that person enjoys stretching, if that person, likes it and actually wants to do it, that's going to increase my likelihood of prescription. That is the case sometimes when I deal with someone that is a person that enjoys yoga or any sort of Pilates class, stuff like that, where they're going to actually be normally doing stretching. In contrast, and when I'm working with like a weightlifter or a power lifter or someone who likely doesn't really like to stretch, I highly doubt that I will prescribe that in any situation, especially when there are other buckets that are going to, probably increase the necessary needs that they have to return back to their function and get back to doing what they want to do. Like when we're looking at stretching, what physiologically is it going to provide that is superior to any of these other things? And not really anything there. Like if I can have someone either do a hamstring stretch or an RDL, the RDL can provide almost everything that static stretch can and more. And now if someone is highly irritable, cannot tolerate much loading, is extremely sensitive to some kind of shear force, anything like that, okay, well then maybe I might gear towards the hamstring stretch as the initial point to start the loading process. If they are so irritable, but I don't find that in most cases, and usually I'm able to find some sort of modification to exercises that are more challenging than stretching. And I don't think that stretching is bad, that it does anything inherently negative to the person, but I really don't see it being that beneficial for the vast majority of people. If we're getting into the conversation of like an extremely high level athlete, we might get into a different point of conversation, but that's probably more from a performance standpoint than it is from a rehab standpoint.
Yeah, I mean, you often hear that somewhat reductionist ideology of like, well, your back hurts because you've got tight hamstrings, or, you've got this insert muscle imbalance, tightness, whatever here that you need to stretch this side because it's tighter than the other side. So I think I agree. I think it's not even necessarily that it's harmful to prescribe stretching. It's just one of those things where if you can get the same benefit plus more benefits from some sort of loaded movement with a similar, I guess, physiologic stress, then why not go that route, right?
Preventive medicine is an incredibly important topic. I want to thank you for taking the time to watch this video. For the full episode, find us on your favorite podcast streaming platform. If you enjoyed this video, don't hesitate to hit that subscribe button, like this video, and share it to keep that message spreading. Thank you once again for watching this video, and we'll see you in the next one.